So good afternoon, happy Monday. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council. Thrilled for all of you to join us today. I know we took Friday off, we won't do that again, and apologize for any kind of iteration of emails that went out as we were trying to clean up the Saturday and Sunday, so apologize for that. So I'm here, Jonathan Kirsting on my team is here. He oversees all things media. He also oversees a lot of the work that we do in terms of all things media as well as marketing. So we're thrilled to have him with us. And then a few things about today's call. So we thank you to Huntington Bank. They've been with us from the onset of this journey. We are now in I think our 106th show since the onset of COVID and all things working remotely, et cetera. They have been with us right from the onset, helping lots of small businesses address a lot of their shortfalls and get the opportunities that the SBA had for them. And then there's Sheets. Sheets, if you don't know them, hopefully that you do if you're listening on this call. And they have a mission to provide fast, friendly service and quality products in clean and convenient locations. They are known across the industry as an organization that is constantly reinventing themselves. We had the COO, their Chief Operating Officer, Travis Sheets, on a couple of Fridays ago talking about what it meant to have innovation and for that to be embedded in terms of what they do. So that was pretty exciting. All of our interviews are archived. Also, Comcast, we're pleased to welcome Comcast as our newest sponsor for the Business as Usual series. And we are particularly appreciative of Comcast's leadership right at the onset of the pandemic as well, similar to Huntington Bank, except Comcast really worked to ensure that low-income families and their children from across the service territory had access to the internet. So from waiving fees for internet essentials to expanding the group of families that were eligible for this benefit, they're playing a very real material role in making sure that we are not allowing a digital divide. So a little bit, we're gonna jump right into the program. Really appreciative for Locomation to be with us. We've had an opportunity to interview him before on our Tech 5 radio. And they're just moving, and no pun intended, but they're definitely taking movement to a whole new level. And in a minute, I am going to introduce the leader who happens to be here in Pittsburgh and one who is fresh off of a major milestone for his technology. And we're going to welcome Cetin in a minute. He is the co-founder and CEO of Locomation. But before we start, I really want to show you a little vignette about what they're up to. So that'll be about a minute long, and we're gonna launch into it right now. And then I'm gonna have Cetin on, and we're gonna be talking about all things Locomation. Let's mute the sound. Okay, so that's okay. We're all about experiments here. So if you want to see that video, which we actually think is pretty awesome and appreciate, as you know, every day in the pandemic is a day of experimentation. So appreciate your patience. Sorry about that, but you can go to their website. I believe, Cetin, you can go to the website, right, and see that. So my apologies. Okay, so let's jump in. Thank you for being here. And, let's talk about what is in that video. Why don't you just, come on, talk about what was in that video, and then we're going to launch from there. So thank you. So we need to unmute you. You're not supposed to mute yourselves because we have to maintain control of that. Can you? All right, there you go. Perfect.
Can everybody hear me? I hope.
Yes, it's great.
I don't stutter as much in real life as that was in the video. But I'll just do a little recap. We are now, especially in the COVID in the background, we are definitely now living in a much different future world. We see from firsthand the acceleration in the change of our behaviors and how we basically live, how we consume, how we maintain our lives. And that shifts more and more towards online retail. We want to experience everything online. We want to click on a screen, and we want something to materialize on our doorsteps. I'm like that, at least. I started buying my toothpaste online. That's something new for me. And I'm growing more and more impatient around that. So we want everything faster, cheaper, etc. And we don't, on a day-to-day basis, we don't think all that much about what needs to happen behind the curtain, what needs to happen under the hood, how the sausage of supply chain is made. To fulfill our dreams, to fulfill our expectations, a clockwork, very precise, very efficient supply chain needs to exist. And at the core of that supply chain, there is trucking. Trucks carry over 70% of everything we touch, we use, we consume. And trucking is a very old school, very antiquated, and a very inefficient business. It's also one of the most essential businesses, if not the most essential, that all of our lives literally depend on. So we are now looking at this two sides of this scissor, if you will. In one hand, the demand is increasing, the constraints, the expectations are increasing, and on the other hand, there are inefficiencies, there are pain points, there are shortcomings. Trucking suffers from a couple of significant problems, significant challenges. First and foremost is increasing shortage of skilled drivers. It's not just any driver who can drive a truck, but it's skilled drivers, which is especially important if you want to maintain a safe and efficient operation. And this labor shortage, skilled labor shortage, especially emphasizes itself on the most critical part of the trucking, which is long-haul trucking. That's how we basically get our fresh produce from warmer climates. That's how we ship back some of the raw materials and semi-products we manufacture here. So long haul is over maybe 60–70% of the entire trucking traffic, and it is at the core of this throbbing pain points. Cue Locomation at that point. A couple of years ago, by the way, I'm here, I'm glad to be here, I'm really honored to be here, but I'm only here on behalf of my entire team. This is, the team is the set of real heroes, and they are the ones making things happen. They are the ones changing the course of the history, and I'm just fortunate enough to show up and tell the story for posterity. So a couple of years ago, when myself and the rest of the team, we decided to launch a company. We decided to build something in the autonomous driving space, but that was not for the sake of just building something. That was not for the sake of, oh, everybody else, all of our friends are starting cool companies and they are raising billions of dollars. Let us start one more. It was not about that. We really wanted to make sure before we pull the trigger, before we do anything about it, we wanted to make sure that we are tackling a problem that we think needs solving and that we think we can solve. And that is not just a science experiment or not just a very long-term pie-in-the-sky kind of vision, but it's something that's meat and potatoes, that's really grounded in reality, and that's basically out there in the real world happening every single day. So we have a real chance of making an impact that you can literally touch and feel and smell. And that's, now that we are in this audience, that's kind of in our DNA as Pittsburghers, right? So we are bold. Right. We are really courageous. We are not afraid of undertaking really big, really bold problems. But we are also not just dreamers. We are makers. So Locomation is literally the distillation of that Pittsburgh DNA, Pittsburgh culture of hardworking, high technology, making the impossible possible, but in a very grounded way. Mm-hmm. Why I gave this introduction is I'm setting the background for that. We wanted to make sure that we are building an autonomous driving product that is a product that we can build that has a controlled, time-boxed roadmap from inception to literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of the products on the roads in a number of years. Coming from the CMU background, riding the CMU legacy, and having worked on autonomous driving pretty much all of our lives, we really intimately understand the challenges and the opportunities in the autonomous driving space. We also had a very fortunate position to witness how the autonomous driving space was being shaped in the past decade or so. So we observed what is working, what is not working, what hypotheses of ours around challenges in autonomous driving were really validated in the field. That's how we decided to do Locomation in an orthogonally different way than pretty much everything else in the autonomous driving space. We wanted to follow an incremental, but very ambitious, but very aggressive roadmap. We wanted to make sure that we are starting with something that can be built with today's engineering and science know-how, at least the know-how of a very capable team like ours. We believe full autonomy, completely getting rid of the human drivers in passenger cars or in semi-trucks has a lot of open problems, a lot of more development and validation needed. So it's a more like a longer term, not exactly a research experiment, but it has a really long tail. Maybe you've heard the concept of long tail regarding autonomous driving. We wanted to cut that tail, at least for our near-term purposes, and define a product that can be built. I suggest you go to our website and read it and watch the video whenever you get a chance. What we are building, what we are starting with is what we call autonomous convoying. It is basically a bundle of 2 trucks where the front truck gets to have a human driver engaged and driving and making all the high-level decisions, understanding what's going on in the world. And the second truck has a passive driver. So the truck itself is driving itself. So it's a fully autonomous truck with the sole task of just following a lead truck from a close distance. This way, the autonomy still gets to drive the truck and still creates tremendous economic benefits, tremendous efficiencies, but it actually operates in the wake of a human driver. So the human driver still makes the high-level decisions. That, we believe, and now we are validated, actually, is the right way to start deploying full autonomy in a very narrow scope. This application is suited for really long-haul routes that enables us to improve the efficiency of the existing driver force. We can basically get twice as much efficiency from the existing drivers. And that fits very, very nicely into the growing demand, but not so growing the supply side of the part. This technology enables the users to ship twice as much cargo to twice as far, twice as fast, with a lot of other side benefits. And that is an incredible force multiplier. And that is also the core parts of the full autonomy that we will be bringing to the market whenever the technology is ready. So what we are building today is not disconnected from our future vision, which is the same as everybody else. We are building what can be built and what can be solidified today. We are also rushing to take that little first product to the market so that our stakeholders can start benefiting from that. We start improving the safety, we start improving the efficiency, we start improving the driving comfort, we start improving everything as soon as we can. And that is what Locomation is all about. Tangible value creation as soon as possible, but also not myopic execution. We also want to go and take over the world, conquer the world, change everything we know today. We don't fight against the forces of the nature. We embrace the fact that this is going to take a long time, and we are just paving our way into the future in a very careful way.
So it's been at least 40 years at Carnegie Mellon that they've been working on autonomous trucks. This is not an overnight.
No.
This is not an overnight endeavor. Can you just sort of let people know a little bit about that 4-decade journey?
It is. Absolutely. Carnegie Mellon is the birthplace of a couple of very important historic achievements, and self-driving or autonomous robots is one of them. We are the very first institution in the world to have a separate robotics institute focusing on building robots. As part of that, we are the very first institute to have the first outdoor autonomous driving experiments going as early as late 80s. In fact, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago was the 25th anniversary of the first No Hands Across America, which was the first autonomous driving, large-scale autonomous driving experiment by Carnegie Mellon. And that was with over 98% autonomous driving for thousands of miles, 25 years ago. And since then, that snowball has been rolling. Carnegie Mellon basically contributed, if not wrote the majority of the autonomous driving literature, contributed all the way from the first principles of basic science to nuts and bolts of complex systems engineering. I am very fortunate, as well as most of our team, very fortunate to have spent some time at National Robotics Engineering Center, NREC. For those who know, that's the applied R&D branch of the Robotics Institute. That sits right in the middle of basic science and real world. And we spent quite a bit of time thinking about not just the cool science aspects of the problem, but what the real world needs and how science and technology can actually help solving the real world. So we've always been geared towards solving real world problems. And we are now, Locomation, it's no exception. We are building on top of our past legacy, if you will. We are standing on the shoulders of the giants.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, what differentiates Locomation from the other efforts that are out there?
A couple of really high-level differentiations. First of all, we are one of the few companies solely focusing on freight automation and not trying to build a universal solution for any kind of autonomous driving in one shot. Again, our aspirations are nothing short of anyone else, but we have a very focused approach to the autonomous driving. Second of all, as I said, we are not fighting against the forces of the nature. For autonomous driving to happen as in the form of a product and at large scale, I'm not talking about demonstrations or very limited deployments here and there. A lot of things, not just the technology part, but a lot of things have to go in lockstep. A lot of peripheral processes have to advance. And in those situations, you are always subject to the weakest links, subject to the slowest process in the bunch, right? So no matter what we do, this is not just a technology play. We need to understand how that industry works. We need to understand what it means for the public, what it means for the regulations, what it means for insurance, what it means for the workforce development. So there are really not infinite, but there are many tentacles of this problem. So we embrace that it's going to take some time. That's why we are more interested in finding these little cracks and finding these pockets of opportunity to go and deploy something, anything that creates value as soon as possible. And that is, interestingly enough, a very unique take on the autonomous driving that we don't see as much with the more larger larger organizations, larger siblings, if you will.
So did you build this company in Pittsburgh because of the history at Carnegie Mellon? You could have gone anywhere.
We could have gone anywhere. There are multiple factors that played into this. First and foremost, we were here. So that was the organic next step for us to also build a company here. And of course, having been at CMU and having connected to the CMU network and connected to the broader robotics and technology ecosystem in Pittsburgh, we also identified that this is very advantageous for us to build our workforce here because we do have access to the talent here. We do have access to the junior talent here, and we do have access to the senior talent here because most of the time we've done a project or two together in the past with most of the senior folks. Mm-hmm. So that was the main decision factor.
How many people are on your team right now?
We are 21 right now. We are a relatively small team, but a very densely experienced team. And we are now at another junction point, another inflection point that in the next couple of months, a quarter or two, we will start growing in a very controlled way. We never subscribe to the idea of you really need to have 2,000 engineers and $5 billion to solve this problem. So we are thinking 10 times and then cutting once, but we will grow. Mm-hmm.
And so do most of the people who work for you, are they coming out of Carnegie Mellon? Or are there any other places?
It's a mixture. A healthy portion of our current team came out of Carnegie Mellon, but about half came out of the rest of the Pittsburgh ecosystem. Everybody came out of the Pittsburgh ecosystem. But of course, the founding team is from Carnegie Mellon. Some of the early technical members are and were from Carnegie Mellon. But at this point, we are more diverse in terms of the history.
And and since the pandemic, what's changed for you since the pandemic, both as in your work as well as your people?
We've always draw pride in being very creative, just like many other startups. And the pandemic definitely asked more and more about our creativity. We have big puppies, big semi-trucks that we need to be around and inside and outside in order to keep developing our system. So it took us some creativity around our development and testing processes when we were under complete lockdown and everybody was exclusively working from home. We devised methods and practical ways of sharing resources, not just online resources, but physical resources too, in order to keep the cadence of the team going forward without compromising safety and health. When the time came for us going back to the first yellow and then the green phase, we devised extra protocols and extra safety measures around the way we can come back to work, how many people can be in the office at the same time, how can we safely coexist and co-inhabit the space, what it means for us to do road testing in these conditions, how can we make sure we can keep moving forward, but we don't compromise not just the immediate team members, but their families or our extended family as well.
So, I just want to talk about some of the trends in Pittsburgh. And, obviously, that we're seeing an international automobile, companies, they're investing billions of dollars into research and development, much of it actually finding its way into Pittsburgh. So from an economic development perspective, what do you think from your role that our region's leaders should be focused on to bring more of these kinds of companies and this kind of investment into Pittsburgh?
First and foremost, I think we are, and I think the broader community should be grateful for the cooperation and for the enthusiasm they are getting from the city, from the state. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect, but there is great enthusiasm and great support we are already receiving. Locomation and similar companies play this interesting catalyst role. We basically are at the forefront, at the trailblazing part of new and exciting technology developments that usually have some incumbents, some much larger players with some vested interest in the domain. So these incumbents and more established players have the chance of coming in and being a part of it. I think we are already seeing some establishments in the automotive and in the autonomous driving part. We have teams from Active, we have teams from Bosch. Now we have a Denso team being built in Pittsburgh. There's an influx of larger players with some capital associated. I don't think the resources associated with the influx are at the required level. So we should all work together to increase that pool of resources that are flowing into the city. I think it is important for Locomation and for similar organizations to be very clever and efficient about integrating the workforce coming from our internal resources like Carnegie Mellon, like University of Pittsburgh, brilliant people at all stages, and play that catalyst role. As again, I want to re-emphasize that, play that catalyst role to get the raw talent and raw resources from the city, match it with the vested interest and incoming resources from outside the city, and try to be a force multiplier there.
So we have some really great questions. I know we're coming to near the end, but I'd really like some of these questions addressed. I mean, people are asking about your target clients. They're asking about the average improvement. There are a bunch of things that have come from folks here, and I apologize for not lobbing that over to Jonathan, also about safety. So I don't know if you can sort of address some of them, because I think there's some excellent points in here. And we all want to be a champion. Right. Okay.
Let me touch all of them very, very quickly. The average, we are looking at, with our initial autonomous convoy technology, we are looking at about 30% improvement in the operating expenses. Majority of that savings come from the improved efficiency around existing labor, and some come from the improved fuel efficiency. And there are some coming from the improved safety, et cetera, but the big two ticket items are the labor efficiencies and the fuel efficiencies. The bottom line is around, as I said, 30%, and that is literally 10x for many trucking operations in the world, because they usually operate with 3 to 5% profit margins. Our target clients, on a follow-up question, we are working with trucking fleets. We are not competing with fleets. We are not trying to be a trucking operation. We are trying to make the existing carriers, existing trucking fleets much more efficient and much more smooth. So our target clients are mid to large size fleets from several hundred trucks all the way to several thousand trucks range. We do work with the shippers. Shippers play an important role in, again, being a catalyst in what kind of technologies will be adopted by the carriers and at what kind of time frames. So we work with the shippers too, but the customers who will be paying us will be the trucking companies in the near term. How the autonomous second truck works at Exist. Again, we are a very pragmatic organization. So our first focus is to build something that can be built with as narrowed down scope as possible. So our autonomous convoys will have 2 drivers, but only 1 driver will be on duty and active during the convoy operations. For all other times, like taking exits, like handling the surface roads, and like doing the docking operations or dropping the trailer of operations, the trucks will be operated manually. The important thing is that for long haul routes, over 95% of the trip is on the interstate, and that's what we are automating in the first place. What is the next biggest problem we are trying to solve, and the safety aspect can somehow go hand in hand. Validation of safety, achieving a safe operation and being able to communicate that achievement, being able to put some quantitative, independently auditable evidence of safety is a broad industry challenge, and we are no exception to that. Especially we are dealing with 40-ton trucks going at 70 miles an hour. Safety is extra important for us. So in the next couple of quarters, our focus will be on building our product in a safe way with some measurable, quantifiable evidence of that safety.
Okay. Well, what do you see the last one? Did you ask it
yes,
about?
The FedEx ground. Let me not comment on that for the time being.
Okay, and then you're gonna track the health of the drivers?
Yes.
Is there anything around
yes,
that?
Yeah, there's a big human element associated with it. We are just like starting to scratch the surface of that. We need to understand it, whether the drivers using this system, our hypothesis is that they will be in a safer operation, they will be in a more comfortable operation, and we are aiming to reduce the cognitive load that comes with constantly driving this, again, big beasts. But most of those hypotheses are not tied to, again, quantified evidence. As we are expanding our tests, as we are moving down the test and validation road further, we will be collecting more data, and we will be understanding more, and we will be validating our hypotheses and revising them if need be.
Well, I just want to thank you on behalf of the tech community for building the company here, for taking the long view of building the company as well. Mm-hmm. And, you know, having, you know, passion, not just around the work, but making sure that you're leveraging the capabilities that you've, you know, accessed being over at Carnegie Mellon